So if they did sedate Madeleine on that night and that is what killed her, this is exactly when it happened. Kate just told us in her own words when the moment was, how it happened, and what led up to it and what followed it. And like I said, I've said many times before, if we pay attention to what's actually said as well as what's not said, we can eventually get to the bottom of the story, I believe, because there is so much leakage in the way they speak. They are not sophisticated liars when they're one-on-one in an interview, especially when they're separated. I don't think Jerry's in there to corroborate anything or to bring her back on track. What does an embedded confession look like? I'm Deception Detective. I'm an attorney trained in statement analysis, and this channel exists to expose lies and manipulation. Before we proceed, please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. In today's video, we're going to watch one of the most recent documentaries about the Madeleine McCann case. Apparently, this one's from 2 years ago. It was sent to me by channel member Mel, who says that this interview contains a lot of leakage, as well as a potential embedded confession from Jerry. So I've not watched this one before. I want to watch it with you guys so we can see what we can catch on the fly. And just remember that if I am making bold assertions or have strong opinions in this video, it's because at this point, this is the 14th video we've done on the McCanns. We've analyzed multiple interviews with them, as well as looked at circumstances surrounding the case. So if I do give a strong opinion here, for example, I do spot an embedded confession, or I do think the leakage is extremely telling, just be aware that this analysis is the product of over a month of work now. And if you want to get caught up on how we came to these conclusions or how I built up this confidence in my opinions, you can watch my DD vs. McCann's playlist, which is the second link in the pinned comment below. Without further ado, let's listen.
In a region known as the Algarve, on Portugal's southernmost coast, there's a secret so great, a cover-up so vast, it captivated the world for a decade.
People want...
First of all, it's interesting that the journalists or the producers of this documentary decided to call this a cover-up in the intro, because I do think this was a cover-up. So if you've followed my analysis on this case, or if you're new here, every McCann's video I do brings in new viewers, so I just want to bring everyone to the table quickly. In my opinion, based on my analysis, I believe that Madeleine was accidentally killed by her mother, Kate, by oversedation, most likely, right? So Kate gave her a sedative, or too much sedative. Madeleine died. And then Madeleine's parents, Kate and Jerry, hid the body somewhere cold, or like a crevice, a cave, the ocean. Or a few videos ago, we started getting into the concept of wells. And based on a little bit of foreshadowing in Mel's comment when she sent me this link, wells do pop up in this documentary. So I think that's going to be fascinating to see if all the leakage I've been spotting in all these videos where the McCanns use nautical references are finally going to give us a payoff. But it is interesting that the producers called this a cover-up, because that is what I think this was. I think it was a tragedy. I think Madeleine was accidentally killed, and then the parents decided to cover it up to avoid potentially even something as small as the embarrassment of looking like negligent parents to something as serious as being arrested in Portugal and having their two other children, twins, taken away from them into foster care while they're in a Portuguese prison. So cover-up seems to be the appropriate word, and hopefully this is an indication that the producers of this documentary are going to take a more balanced approach to this investigation, to this crime. Unlike some of the other interviewers we've seen, where they defer to the McCanns version of events, where they say that a stranger kidnapper kidnapped Madeleine, and the journalists who interview them never seem to push back on that.
To believe that something like this can't happen to them.
It's every parent's worst nightmare.
For 10 years, Jerry and Kate McCann have returned to Portugal, the last place they saw their daughter Madeleine.
When you come back to Portugal, do you feel closer to Madeleine?
Certainly when I go to Praia de Luz, I do, and that's why I do go back there frequently.
If you're familiar with the concept of leakage, which I've pointed out many times in videos, it's when the truth comes out through the words people use. And even here, and the reason for leakage is people don't like to lie. So Kate's response here might not necessarily be incriminating or leakage, but we should note it. So the journalist just asked her, do you feel closer to Madeleine when you're in Portugal? And Kate said, certainly we do. One second. Let's just get her exact words.
Returned to Portugal, the last place they saw their daughter Madeleine.
When you come back to Portugal, do you feel closer to Madeleine?
Certainly when I go to Praia de Luz, I do, and that's why.
All right, so certainly when I go to Playa de Luz, so she feels closer to Madeleine when she goes to the resort where Madeleine was allegedly kidnapped. So that could be perfectly innocent because she feels closer to Madeleine because that's the last place she saw Madeleine. Or it could be a little bit revealing where she's telling us that she feels closer to Madeleine in Playa de Luz because that's where she buried Madeleine or hid Madeleine's body. So she's physically closer to Madeleine there, which is why she feels emotionally closer to her. In fact, this documentary said that they go back to Portugal every year. They've been doing so for 10 years. That might even just be a pilgrimage to visit Madeleine's body, or visit the area where they've buried her. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone's ever tailed them when they did those visits. And I'm sure the Portuguese police have done that, hopefully. It'd be interesting to see where they go while they're in Portugal, what coastline they drive down, if they drive into a particular field, pass by any wells, or any significant landmarks that are cold and watery and deep.
That's why I do go back there frequently. And although I don't know where Madeleine is, that is the last place that, I saw her and held her, and I guess.
And that's strange as well for her to say, well, I don't know where Madeleine is. If her child's actually kidnapped, that's assumed. She doesn't need to tell us that she doesn't know where Madeleine is. So the fact that she feels the need to persuade us of that or to even mention it is a bit of a red flag. Over persuasion is a sign of deception. When people are lying, they know they're lying. So in their head, they already try to compensate for it by doing a little bit of extra persuasion. For example, where they say honestly, or they say defensive things before they've even been pushed on it. For example, like Kate here. Although I don't know where she is, I feel close to her there. No one asked her, do you know where she is in this interview, right? It should be assumed. So the fact that Kate felt the need to say that is a slight red flag. Also, just be aware, when I'm pointing out these red flags, it does not mean that these are like, aha, gotcha moments. I'm just pointing out things that we should be taking note of because all of these signs are cumulative, right? So we have a bunch of tiny red flags, but if you put them all together, it's enough to feel confident in accusing someone of being a liar. And that's how deception works everywhere, whether we're looking at the McCanns, the Ramseys, politicians, people in your own life, the news. The more little red flags we find, the more they should pile up, accumulate, so that you can confidently say, I don't believe this, or this is deceptive. And already we might have some leakage from Kate about the body being there, but now we actually have a deceptive statement, which is over persuasion, where she said, I don't know where Madeleine is. Where Madeleine is, that is to be assumed. And ironically, when people state obvious things like that, the irony is that it actually indicates the exact opposite.
I do go back there frequently.
For example, if a police officer pulls someone over, do you know why I pulled you over? I don't have weed in the car, so it couldn't be that. Well, you can bet that the officer is now going to search the car for weed, right? Because it was unprompted. Someone just volunteered something that should have been assumed.
Frequently. And although I don't know where Madeleine is, that is the last place that, I saw her and held her, and I guess there's a part of me that still feels connected to her there. So.
But there are still those who believe the couple's connection to the crime is far greater than they've ever let on.
The focus is now firmly on the parents.
They're lying and they're concealing guilt.
Hey, it's Pat Brown. If you've seen my last two videos,
The couple's connection to the
Pat, right?
crime is far greater than they've ever let on.
The focus is now firmly on the parents.
second.
They're lying and they're concealing.
That's Pat. So if you've seen my last two videos, Pat and I have exchanged basically videos with each other on each other's channel. She is a criminal profiler, very experienced. She shares a lot of the same opinions that I do about the McCann case. And if you've not subscribed to her channel, I recommend it. And if you want to see more of Pat, you can watch my last McCann's video, How to Solve a Cold Case, featuring profiling with Pat Brown. And she's made two videos about me. And her last one was actually welcoming me to this McCann's case, which is very nice. And pointed out her long history with the McCanns and just how litigious they are, and how basically anyone that speaks out against them ends up having to defend themselves at some point.
Concealing guilt.
An estimated $20 million
So let's listen to what Pat said there. I think she said they're concealing guilt, and I agree.
let on.
The focus is now firmly on the parents.
They're lying and they're concealing guilt.
An estimated $20 million has been spent trying to find the world's most famous missing person.
This is the most baffling case I've ever looked at.
Tonight, the new theories on where Madeleine may be. How many wells are there, and how difficult are they to...
So this is crazy. So they're going to talk about wells in this documentary. And if you've seen my videos on the McCanns, I suggest watching this playlist in order. So in the order of my first McCanns video, How to Analyze a Suspect, which almost has 200,000 views now, all the way to where we are now. Because you'll be able to see how we developed the well theory on our own. I had never considered wells before. I recognized leakage in the words the McCanns used whenever they spoke about Madeleine, where they made references to the police using thermal cameras, which indicate to me that they were picturing her somewhere cold because they were thinking of heat cameras, to using nautical references, so watery references, and deep references, like keeping my head above water, even keel, radar, like marine radar. And each bit of leakage on its own, like I said earlier, didn't mean much. But the fact that I pointed it out from day one, from the first McCann video, and we collected them, and they accumulated, I was eventually able to say, I think Madeleine is somewhere cold, dark, watery. And one of you guys, a commenter, said there's a bunch of wells in that area in Portugal. And ever since then, something clicked. So I don't know if the commenter had seen this documentary, But that is one of the great benefits of doing my analysis in public. By doing it publicly rather than on my own here, like a private investigation, by doing it publicly, I can get feedback from you guys, especially the members of the channel, like Mel. So if you see this badge, it means they're a member of the channel. It means they've followed me for quite a while. They've watched lots of videos, and that they actually support the channel financially. So they're another degree of invested into this, building this skill. So by doing it publicly, I get feedback. I get to hear right away if someone doesn't understand my explanation. I am taking your feedback that sometimes I explain rules a little bit too long, so I'm trying to work on that. But whenever I pull back on that, then I get comments of new people coming and saying they don't understand. So I'm trying to find a happy medium. But either way, by doing it in public, I get feedback, I get commentary, I get other opinions, and one of those opinions was Wells. I think it pointed us in the correct direction with our own analysis, and now it seems like this documentary also came to that conclusion, which is great. Whenever I see a third party confirm something that we've come up with based solely on the language, it gives it extra validation. So I'm very curious to see what this documentary says about wells and if they've actually been searched. Apparently, according to the comments, there's tons of unsearched wells in that area. There's like literally thousands of wells in that area.
They just search.
There are hundreds of wells. 300, 400, 500, 600.
Oh, wow. All right. I predicted what the guy's going to say. So I said thousands, he said hundreds. So either way, it's a lot of wells.
Wells.
The promising fresh clues.
It's just as logical to believe that she may still.
So if you're listening on podcast mode, you're not seeing all these faces, but we're seeing lots of people who have popped up in our previous videos. So for example, now we're seeing Clarence Mitchell, the McCanns full-time PR guy, someone who I feel like I am diametrically opposed to. He is their British bulldog. If you come after the McCanns or you doubt their story, if you express even an opinion that goes against them, eventually they will come after you. And on my channel, I've done a whole video about him in how to derail an investigation. And I've also mentioned the bots that come to my channel, which I believe do come from PR firms like the ones that Clarence Mitchell runs.
May still be alive somewhere being held against a will.
So let me just pause and say thank you, Mel, for recommending this video. This is the 14th video in the series, and I feel like this is a great milestone video that seems to be verifying lots of things we pointed out in other videos. So hopefully this brings lots of stuff together for us.
The will.
And it will also give us the opportunity to see, like I said in the intro, like Mel said, promised this video has an embedded confession. And I just want to quickly touch on what that is, just so you guys can be as excited as I am about potentially seeing one. So in my deception deck, which I'm working on, which you can pre-order, that is going to be one of the cards under the grammar suit, under possessive pronouns. So what is an embedded confession or an embedded admission? An embedded admission is something we see in the grammar of a statement. So it's the way someone phrases a statement. And it's by their use of a possessive pronoun. So I'll just read you the definition that's going to be on this card in the deception deck. So possessive pronouns like mine, his, hers show ownership and are used naturally in speech. Pay close attention to them, as liars might inadvertently use them to claim responsibility for the crime. When this happens, it's known as an embedded admission. So in other words, if someone talks about the crime and uses the possessive pronoun my, that might be them leaking that they take ownership of the crime. Just because possessive pronouns are used so naturally that sometimes liars slip up and take ownership of something that they really shouldn't be taking ownership of. And we've seen that a couple of times on the channel. We saw it with Nadia Amine, where we caught her accidentally taking ownership of cheating in a video game. We saw it with Liver King, where we saw him accidentally take ownership of taking steroids. And the most famous example, the one that's going to be on this card in the Deception deck, is O.J. Simpson, which I'm sure lots of you might be familiar with this one, because this one appears in one of the books I recommended to my followers. So in I Want to Tell You by O.J. Simpson, he wrote, "I am grateful that even those who believe in my guilt also believe that I should have my day in court." In other words, instead of saying those who believe I am guilty, he used my guilt, inadvertently implying ownership of the crime. This can be seen as an embedded confession where he acknowledges my guilt as an already established fact. So that's a clear example of what I believe to be an embedded confession, an embedded admission. He took ownership of the guilt when he said my guilt. That was a slip up. It's because the grammar is so obvious, liars slip up. Whereas if you were innocent, he should have phrased it as those who believe I'm guilty. All right, so that is what an embedded admission is, and the way you spot it is by looking at possessive pronouns. So hopefully this will jump out to us when Jerry hopefully does it in this documentary. But before we get there, I feel like there's lots of other great stuff in this documentary, including the analysis of Wells.
And why detectives at Scotland Yard believe they're closer than ever to identifying the person who took Madeleine.
It could be the key to the case.
A photo of innocence that has become one of the most recognisable faces on Earth. Taken on the 3rd of May 2007, it's the last known image of Madeleine Beth McCann.
She was just sitting by the pool with myself, and we've both got our feet just paddling, and she is so happy, just there with her hat and her little outfit on.
You all happy? Ready to...
Yeah.
When Jerry and Kate McCann sat down with Sunday Night, it was the happy memories of Madeleine they wanted to share.
She was an incredibly beautiful baby, actually. And
you sound like the most biased parent on the planet now, but she was just really compact and just a really kind of nice, round, perfect head, and and then she opened her mouth, and the whole world knew she was with us. But
she had McCann level volume.
Okay, I think I've seen part of this interview before. So this is actually a famous interview or documentary. I just don't remember that opening part. So statement analyst Peter Hyatt has actually analyzed this interview. So if you haven't subscribed to him or seen his videos, he's an excellent statement analyst. Part of that group with me, Pat Brown, I think Sonia Poulton also shares the same theories that they do and I do. And if I remember correctly, Peter Hyatt has analyzed this interview, because I remember him talking about it being strange that they talked about how loud Madeleine was, where he said that, it's strange for a parent to actually say something that's not a compliment, right, to their kid when they're dead, to actually say something that's a little bit of a complaint about their dead daughter, which is strange. And I remember that because it jumped out to me. But also, I remember someone on X sending me an article about them talking about how much Madeleine cried. And that might have been a real issue, where Madeleine was very noisy and cried a lot, which might explain why they routinely sedated her at bedtime so that they could get some sleep. Right? These are two busy doctors who just had twins. Twins add a whole extra dimension of stress to a family, right? You already have one kid. Now all of a sudden, instead of doubling the amount of kids you have, you've tripled it. You have 3 kids now to take care of. 2 of them are newborns. So having one very loud daughter plus 2 new twins and access to sedatives Kate was an anesthetist, might explain why they would have routinely sedated Madeleine to get her to go to bed, and why on the night that she, I believe the night she died from oversedation, she was sedated, right? Because it was just routine. But I do remember him pointing out this comment in one of his videos, a clip of his videos, about them saying that about her.
Incredibly beautiful baby, actually. And
you sound like the most biased parent on the planet now, but she was just really compact and just a really kind of nice, round, perfect head, and and then she opened her mouth, and the whole world knew she was with us.
Right, so that's their way of saying she was very loud. So even though, right, these are supposed to be parents who are missing their daughter, they can't help but make this complaint, which means that if they, imagine complaining about your missing daughter in front of a camera, knowing it's being recorded. Imagine what they say in private about how loud she was. So she must have been extremely loud. So loud that in order to get sleep as two busy doctors, they might have just taken the easy route and given her sedative to put her to sleep, which is what I think happened. And imagine how much they would have sedated her on a vacation where they really want to relax. I don't think they gave her extra sedative, but they might have given it a little bit earlier or in a slightly different circumstance, which caused it to hit differently. Or maybe they gave her more, right? I'm not firm on my opinion about, I've seen some people say they think that they double dosed Madeleine, and I don't think that's the case. Because whenever they speak about their guilt, Kate always changes to the personal I when she talks about her guilt. Whereas as you see here, every other thing they talk about, it's we. And I think that she's expressing her guilt about being the one who actually administered the sedative. So I don't think it was the case of Kate gave Madeleine sedative, and then Jerry came along an hour later, didn't know that Kate did, and he gave it to her too. I feel like it was only Kate. So maybe Kate gave her a little bit more, or maybe just gave it to her a little bit later than usual, hit her differently. But as far as that goes, them talking about how loud Madeleine was in this circumstance where they know they're being recorded means she must have been very loud. It must have been a huge issue for them if they still can't get over it 10 years later.
She had McCann level volume, there's no doubt about that.
She's a screamer right from the start.
She was really loud.
Okay, so now they out and said it, right? So she was really loud. And I think that is a very important detail, how loud she was.
Right, home.
Cardiologist Jerry McCann and his GP wife Kate had turned to IVF after years of trying to conceive naturally. After Madeleine came twins Sean and Amelie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a secret really that I always wanted to be a mother. I don't know if maybe that stemmed from being an only child and sort of, wanting that feeling of family. So yeah, I mean, even when I was in school and stuff, my friends were aware of it, and in my university medical book yearbook, when we graduated, it says prognosis, mathematician, mother of 6.
You say the family felt really complete.
Yeah, we did feel incredibly lucky.
These are my shoes.
Are they new?
Yeah.
And what colour are they?
Pink.
The McCanns had usually holidayed in Britain, but in 2007, friends suggested they travel to Portugal. A cheap overseas destination considered fun and family-friendly.
You didn't want to go to Portugal.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't for any kind of major reason. I just thought, we had 3 very young children, and I was just thinking practically, I just wasn't sure really if it was worth that effort, if it would be as enjoyable.
Oopsie, you all right?
But she gave in and joined 3 other families with 5 other kids for a week-long vacation at the Ocean Club Resort here in the town of Praia de Luz.
All right, so Praia de Luz is the name of the resort. I think Praia is kind of like playa in Spanish, right? Like the beach. So earlier I was going to comment that her saying, whenever I go to the Praia de Luz might really mean like when she goes to the water, but playa is actually also the name of the resort.
The holiday began on April 28th, 2007.
As it turned out, the kids loved it.
All the kids were playing together and they were running around saying, "Chase us, chase." And Madeleine especially, she loved getting chased and me running after her.
The days were fun for the kids, but the late nights in Portugal stretched on too long. On the first night of the trip, the couples discovered the resort's main restaurant, the Millennium, was too far a walk for 8 small children. So the McCanns and their friends made a block booking for the next 6 nights at the tapas restaurant across the pool from their apartments. From the restaurant, they had line of sight to the block of villas where their children were sleeping.
Actually, in the comments, can someone please confirm, is this the interview that Peter Hyatt analyzed? Or is this a different one? Because if this is a different one, that means that that whole thing about Madeleine being loud, they said that almost verbatim in 2 different interviews, which is a sign of scripting, which is really strange. Why would you script a complaint about her being loud? Maybe you would script a complaint of her being loud if you expected the police to find the body and be able to test it for sedatives. Because then you could say, yeah, we sedated her because she was really loud. It was routine. We didn't kill her. She was kidnapped. You know, even if we sedated her, she was still kidnapped, and the kidnapper hit her, threw her body down this well. So please confirm in the comments, because I remember hearing them make that complaint in an old Peter Hyatt video, and I don't think it's the same interview or the same documentary anymore. That's very bizarre if that is scripted. We'd have to look more into that. If this is the same one, then that makes sense. They probably slipped up and only made that complaint once.
Explained that it wasn't like you were taking a risk by leaving the kids there. It never for 1 second occurred to you that anything would take place.
That's right. I mean, we always talk about the decision we made, but that almost implies that you talked about, do you think that'll be okay or not? I mean, that never came into it. It was a case of, we can eat here. That'll be ideal. The kids' evening won't be disruptive. We'll get them sorted and then we can all eat. I mean, it was simply like that. If there'd been any risk at all that had occurred.
Another rule, with deception detection is looking at the context of things. So she's talking about them not regretting leaving the kids alone in the room because it wasn't a decision that they discussed. And then when she elaborates, she gets very vague. Well, we would get the kids sorted and then we would go eat. Sorted is a deliberately vague term, right? In the UK, sorted can mean we just got things figured out. We just got things smoothed over. It's not the same as saying we tucked them into bed or we put the kids to bed and then we went to go eat. Sorted is vague. It could include sorted, could be getting their teeth brushed, putting their pajamas on, giving them their sedatives, tucking them in bed. It's a vague term. And I think the reason she uses vague terms like this, every time she's asked about what she did when preparing Madeleine for bed, or whenever they get asked about putting their kids to bed, is because they did something in that process. The nighttime routine contains something that they want to gloss over, which is why they get very opaque whenever they get asked to describe that. And I think the reason they get opaque is, of course, because that is when they administer the sedatives to Madeleine and maybe the twins as well. So getting the kids sorted, it's nice and vague, covers everything you need to cover in this interview, but really reveals nothing.
We can eat here. That'll be ideal. The kids' evening won't be disruptive. We'll get them sorted and then we can all eat. I mean, it was simply like that. If there'd been any risk at all that had occurred to us, then it just wouldn't have happened.
Thursday, May 3rd was meant to be the second last night of their vacation.
Kate told me about that afternoon and that evening. Madeleine said she'd had a great day.
Yeah, no, she'd had a really full day, actually. She'd they'd been to the beach and had I think they called it mini sail. So she'd been on a little boat or a dinghy or something.
All right, so this is interesting. I've never heard what Madeleine did that day. In an earlier video, or even here, I said earlier, right? They don't have to have given Madeleine extra sedative for it to hit her wrong enough to kill her. She was a toddler. She was 3 years old. Like I said in earlier videos and here, even if they gave her the same amount of sedative as they normally did in their bedtime routine, which I think that was part of their bedtime routine, just based on the leakage, based on how vague they are about it, and how they complain about her being loud. So if you give someone a sedative in a different country, after a full day, maybe while they're a little bit more dehydrated than usual, a little bit more exhausted than usual, maybe a little bit of heat, a little bit of heat stroke, it can hit them a lot stronger than usual. Back home in the UK where it's nice and cool, they have their routine, they're going to bed at the same time, their body is ready at the right time to ingest the sedatives. Even a small change, and particularly a big change, like being out on a dinghy all day in the water, can affect how that sedative hits you. So the idea that Madeleine would have had to have been given extra sedative or a double dose, it's not necessary for what we're seeing to have actually happened, where it was just a normal sedation, which is why she mentions not discussing it, because they were just following their routine. And unfortunately, it hit Madeleine wrong this particular day, killed her, and then they had to improvise. That's what I think happened. So it is interesting that Kate is talking about the fact that Madeleine did have a full day that day and was out in the sun, out on a dinghy. If you've ever been sailing before, you know just how exhausting it is, right? Not only do you have the sun beating down on you, but you also have the wind whisking away sweat, beating you down. It's actually extra exhausting. You're basically getting cooled by the wind, getting windburn, depending how fast you are. You're getting the sun on you. You have the salt from the sea drying you out. There's lots of elements that can contribute to you doing something a little bit different that day and it hitting you totally differently. For example, drinking alcohol after sailing would get you drunk way quicker. Imagine being a 3-year-old after a day of sailing and then taking a medical grade sedative.
Something. But my memory of that evening is really vivid. I mean, she was really tired, but she was just cuddled up on my knee, and we read a story, which, as Jerry said, is one of her favourites, and she often liked to put on my engagement ring. So she was sitting there with my, ring on, and we read the story, and we also had some treats. We had some crisps and biscuits. And then after they'd done the usual kind of toilet teeth, we went through to the bed.
All right, we've seen Kate do this in another interview when she was asked about what she did when putting Madeleine to bed. Listen to how detailed she is about every little thing until she gets to one part of the story, and then it's just toilet teeth. One way liars lie is by skipping over things, right? So leaving stuff out. And when it comes to hoaxers or someone fabricating a lie, what they tend to do is they linger on the true part. So they'll go into great detail about all the true stuff. But when it comes, first of all, because it helps them tell you more true things, so they build up their credibility. But also it delays them having to get to the lie. So listen to all the details that Kate gives here, right? All the way down to Madeleine fiddling with the engagement ring. But then we get a very short description, toilet teeth, and then Madeleine's in bed. If they sedated Madeleine, that's when it happened. The toilet and teeth time skip. And we see this not only with, I believe the McCanns are criminal hoaxers, right? I believe that they covered up negligence. At the very least, they were negligent in their administration of sedatives and they covered it up. So, but we also see this in other hoaxers like Bob Lazar with UFOs. He talks in great detail about getting the job in Area 51 and how he was employed, the interview process, But when it comes to talking about the UFOs, he gets very vague and very quick. Right? It's very short, very reticent. Bob Gimlin, when he talks about Bigfoot, we get a big lead up into going through the woods, camping, all this stuff. But when it comes to spotting Bigfoot, he dispenses with it in 2 or 3 words. Like he says something like, "There it was." So always note this. When people get vague and short, it's likely that that's where the information you really want is. And they're skipping over it because they don't want to directly lie. So they're trying to get past it and hope you don't notice. So let's listen to all that again. Listen to how detailed Kate is up until she gets the toilet teeth. If they sedated Madeleine, that's when it happened, during that part of the routine, the toothbrushing routine. And what do you do every night? You brush your teeth every night. So if it was part of that nightly routine of brushing teeth and going to the bathroom, then the sedation happened every night. It was routine.
And she often liked to put on my engagement, really vivid.
All right, so let's listen.
They'd been to the beach and had like I think they called it mini sail. So she'd been on a little boat or a dinghy or something. But my memory of that evening is really vivid. I mean, she was really tired, but she was just cuddled up on my knee, and we read a story, which, as Jerry said, is one of her favourites. And she often liked to put on my engagement ring.
All right, so we have a story. Engagement ring.
So she was sitting there with my, ring on, and we read the story, and we also had some treats.
Treats. We have 3 details, right? A little story, playing with the engagement ring, treats.
Some crisps and biscuits. And then,
she even tells us what the treats were, crisps and biscuits.
And after they'd done the usual kind of toilet teeth.
All right, so after the usual toilet teeth, this part is dispensed with in after they'd done the usual toilet teeth. 7 words. We have all these sentences describing leading up to brushing teeth. Then brushing teeth, changing the pajamas, going to the bathroom is dispensed with in 7 words and very vague. He didn't say Jerry brushed her teeth, took her to the bathroom. It's just, in reality, it's just 2 words, toilet teeth. And we also have a time jump after toilet teeth. So she's really, I hope you guys are recognizing this. I hope I'm not belaboring this point. The contrast between what she was saying earlier and here is huge. This is a temporal jump. This is in the deception deck under, where is it? Our cues, right? A temporal lacunae. Actually, it's here in grammar. A temporal lacunae. Basically, when time jumps, you should be on the lookout that someone is being evasive, that they're not telling you the full story. And if you're interviewing someone like this, you let them do that. You make note of it. And then once they've committed themselves to their story, then you go back. Okay, so after you had the treats, then what happened? And you get them to break it down in detail. And that's how you discover a lie. That's how you trap someone in inconsistency. And I don't want to give away too many of the interviewing techniques just yet, just in case I ever do get an opportunity to teach them to you with a real subject on the channel. And you can see me catch someone in a lie in real time.
We went through to the bedroom and read another story, if you're happy and you know it.
So there, that's it. So toilet teeth. Now we're going back and reading another story.
Yeah.
So if they did sedate Madeleine on that night and that is what killed her, this is exactly when it happened. Kate just told us in her own words when the moment was, how it happened, and what led up to it and what followed it. And like I said, I've said many times before, if we pay attention to what's actually said as well as what's not said, we can eventually get to the bottom of this story, I believe, because there is so much leakage in the way they speak. They are not sophisticated liars when they're one-on-one in an interview, especially when they're separated. I don't think Jerry's in there to corroborate anything or to bring her back on track.
The children were in bed by 7 o'clock. Their parents left for dinner at 8:30. The tapas bar was across the pool from their apartment. The McCanns apartment was on the end, the most accessible from the street. The front door was locked, but the sliding patio doors at the back were left unlocked to allow easy access to check on their children. Madeleine was asleep in a single bed in the front room where her parents kept the window closed and locked. The twins, Sean and Amelie, were in travel cots by her side. At 9:05, Jerry went back to check on the children.
So if you're listening to this video on podcast mode, I would suggest at least going back later at some point and watching this last minute of the video, because this documentary does a really great graphic of the layout of the apartment. So it's actually the first time I've seen how that actual vacation their resort room was laid out.
I saw her and I had one of those parental moments where I thought, God, we're so lucky. Look at her, 3 children having a lovely holiday. Kids were really enjoying it, and I just lingered for a few seconds and thought how beautiful she was. And that's the last time I saw her.
Last time you saw.
So on my first McCann's video, Jerry made a similar comment, and I don't think I explained well why the comment was strange. So hopefully I do a better job here. Let's listen to it again, and then I'll explain why it's a strange comment. And I'm not saying that the way he spoke here means that he's guilty. It's just something that we flag. And I point it out because, like I said, it's cumulative. At this point, my opinion about the McCanns is very firm. But even back then, I pointed it out because it was one of the first things I saw. It stood out to me, and hopefully I can explain why it stands out. So let's listen again. See if you can notice the tenses. Pay attention to the tenses he uses here. Okay? Pay attention to the tenses he uses here. In the other interview, he was asked about the last time he saw Madeleine, and he gave this almost exact same answer verbatim.
Those parental moments where...
To check. Okay. Parents kept the window closed and locked.
So pay attention. Pay attention to the tenses.
Sean and Amelie were in travel cots by her side. At 9:05, Jerry went back to check on the children.
I saw her and I had one of those parental moments where I thought, God, we're so lucky.
All right. So I had one of those parental moments where I thought, God, we're so lucky, which is correct. When you're talking about something you remembered, you speak in the way you remembered it, which is present tense in this case, right? I thought we're so lucky. We are so lucky. That's correct. Right? If I get into a car accident, I think, damn, I'm so unlucky. You know, if I'm telling you about a car accident I got into a car accident last week. I hit this car, and the second it happened, I thought, I'm just so unlucky. Right? That's correct. I don't say I got into an accident last week and I thought I was so unlucky. That's not how it works. When you're relaying something, you relay the thoughts you had in present tense because that's how they occurred to you when they occurred in your brain. So here he says, I thought we are so lucky, which is correct.
Look at her, 3 children having a lovely holiday. Kids were really enjoying it, and I just lingered for a few seconds and thought how beautiful she was.
And then I thought how beautiful she was. That's the red flag to me. So the fact that he's thinking how beautiful his children are, that's perfectly normal. I've had many parents in my comments say, I look at my children all the time and think how beautiful they are. How dare you, DD? I looked at my kid just last night and thought how beautiful she is. What are you talking about? Well, that's exactly my point. So if you look at my replies on those comments, I actually put some of them on X, where they're actually proving my point for me. Yes, when you look at your beautiful kid, when you looked at your kid last night and thought how beautiful she is, you use the present tense. because your kid is alive. So you're saying, yes, I looked at her last night. She's beautiful. But that's not what Jerry did. He did it once, and now when he repeats it, he puts in the past tense. I thought how beautiful she was. And that's the red flag. It does not mean that Madeleine's dead, but it is strange that he relays it as if she were already dead, as if she's no longer with us. I would expect him to say here, I thought how beautiful she is, because he's relaying his thought the last time he had her, and if she was alive, she should still be in present tense, just like he did earlier. Right? I thought how lucky we are, and then I thought how beautiful she was. So listen again. Even he gets the tense wrong here, which is why it's a strange thing. It's a red flag. And part of deception detection is looking for leakage. The same way O.J. Simpson used the wrong possessive pronoun when he said my guilt. Jerry appears to be using the wrong tense when he talks about his thought of Madeleine. If that is really what he thought the last time he saw her, it means the last time he saw her, she was dead, because he was thinking how beautiful she was. So let me know in the comments if I've explained it more clearly this time. Lingering in the doorway and looking at your beautiful children is perfectly normal. But thinking to yourself, wow, telling someone, yeah, I looked at my children last night. I thought how beautiful they were. I thought how beautiful my kids used to be last night. Well, that would be a red flag to me, because I'd be wondering what happened to your kids. Why are you talking about them in the past tense? Why, when you're relaying something, a thought you had yesterday, you were talking about your kids as if they were no longer with us? That's a red flag. So listen to how Jerry makes the mistake himself.
I saw her and I had one of those parental moments where I thought, God, we're so lucky.
Right? We're so lucky. That's correct. Present tense. And I know I'm belaboring this one, but so many people didn't get it, so we're going to belabor it. Present tense. He's relaying a thought he had, so he's telling the thought in present tense. I look back, I thought how lucky we are. That's correct. We already know he knows how to relay a thought. So when he relays his thought about Madeleine and puts it in the past tense, it's a red flag. It means that thought, he might have actually had that thought the last time he saw her, and the fact that he's using present tense means that the last time he saw her, she might have been dead. That's why it's important. Now, we're only 8 minutes into this video, so this isn't the embedded confession that Mel was talking about. That's coming up. But I'm glad I had the opportunity to hopefully clarify this point. I think lots of people missed it, even though they proved it in their own comments complaining about it.
Look at her 3 children having a lovely holiday. Kids were really enjoying it, and I just lingered for a few seconds and thought how beautiful she was.
So I think what's happening here is he's actually telling us about the last time he saw Madeleine. And he was holding her dead body and thinking how beautiful she was. Right? He's lapsing into a real memory. It's easier to speak from memory. That's what leakage is, when basically real memories influence what someone's saying when they're really trying to tell you something that they're imagining, right? Something that they're lying. A real memory is a lot stronger than a lie, because a real memory actually happened. You have to actively block it out when you're trying to talk about a fabrication you made up. And that's why hoaxers, liars, false accusers have leakage, especially under stress, like the stress of a live interview.
And that's
the last time I saw her.
Last time you saw her.
All right, okay, here. That's the last time he saw her. So he's saying the last time he saw Madeleine, he thought how beautiful she was. If she was still alive, he should be saying the last time I saw Madeleine, I thought how beautiful she is. That's just how grammar works. Does this mean 100% for a fact that she was dead when he saw her? No. However, it's a poker chip, and when I stack up my poker chips, I'm either stacking up enough that I feel confident to go all in to accuse someone of being a liar, or I'm just stacking them up and waiting till my pile gets big enough, and maybe it never gets big enough. And early on, this was might have been my first poker chip in this case, where I thought that's the wrong statement. And the pile has continued to grow ever since then. Right now, I'm all in that I think they are lying. So I'm actually very happy that I had hopefully the opportunity to clarify that. I hope it makes sense. And I know some of you might be thinking, well, that's a huge leap because she's gone now. He knows that. So he's talking about her in past tense when he's talking about that's just not how it works. When you relay a thought you had, you relay it in the tense you had it.
You saw her. You thought how lucky you were.
Exactly. Your world shattered to thin and air.
I think even the journalist here realizes how odd that tense is. Right? She says, you thought how lucky you were the last time you saw her? Right? He's talking about the last time he saw her. She should be alive. He should be thinking how lucky we are. He doesn't know anything's happened to her yet, allegedly. The fact that he's saying, last time I saw her, I thought how lucky we were, means the last time he saw her, he was already thinking we're no longer lucky. Means something bad already happened the last time he saw her. And if he was seeing her thinking that, it means she wasn't kidnapped. If she was actually kidnapped the last time he saw her, he could be thinking, how lucky we are right now. We're so lucky. And then next time he checks, she's gone. Wow, we were lucky. This really sucks. But he's already talking about their luck in the past tense. He's already talking about her beauty in the past tense when he's basically trying to tell us this is the last time he saw her.
And we're having a lovely holiday. Kids were really enjoying it, and I just lingered for a few seconds and thought how beautiful she was. And that's the last time I saw her.
Last time you saw her.
So listen to the journalist. She repeats his exact words. She's like, really? The last time you saw her, you were thinking how lucky you were? Why were you no longer lucky when you were looking at her that last time? Like, did you spill some tapas on your lap and you were just thinking, wow, I'm really unlucky while you were checking the room and then later she was kidnapped?
You thought how lucky you were.
Exactly. Your world shattered to thin and air.
It was 10 p.m. Kate's turn to check on the children. She estimates it took between 30 and 45 seconds to walk from the tapas restaurant on the other side of the pool to their apartment, number 5A. She walked into the kids' bedroom and felt a gust of wind.
The curtains, which had been closed, just swung open into the room and revealed that the shutter was all the way up.
All right, so this story is scripted. I'm not going to belabor this one because hopefully you've all seen my videos about this, what a scripted story looks like. Every time Kate relates her story of checking the bedroom, it follows the exact same script beat for beat, which is a sign of scripting, which is a sign of a hoax, which is a sign when two conspirators, and the word is conspirators. It comes from French. So I've had lots of people in the comments, you should be saying conspirators. No, it's conspirators. So two conspirators, just say conspiracy, right? It's frustrating when I have to teach English to English speakers, right? It's conspirators. So when two conspirators cook up a story together, also in the Ramsey case, it's a garrote, right? From Spanish, adopted by the French, popularized by French, it's a garrote. All right, so when two conspirators cook up a story, what they typically do is they make the story as vanilla as possible, as easy to remember as possible, and with as few details as possible. That way they do not contradict each other, and they also do not contradict themselves in future tellings of the event, and they shield their story against any future evidence that may be found, because they make it as vague as possible so as not to contradict any evidence that might be collected by the police already, that the police will use to prove that they're lying, or any evidence that can ever be collected to prove that they're lying. So this story that Kate tells when she checks the room has all the hallmarks of a scripted story, and I've done 2 videos about how this is scripted and how you can recognize scripted stories in your own life.
Up and the window being pushed right across. And then I just knew she'd been taken. I ran to the window. I've no idea what I expected to find or see. You just hope you're going to see your child every second. whizzed around the apartment in about 10 seconds. Again, I don't quite know because, you know, I knew in my head that someone had taken her. I don't know if I kind of hoped that maybe she was hiding in a cupboard.
All right, so there's lots to unpack here, and we're already an hour into this video. So let's look at some comments, the top comments from my last McCanns video. I know you guys enjoy this portion. Retention really goes up during this, so clearly you guys have very good comments. So I'm going to read the top comments from my last McCanns video. We'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes there before we conclude. And in my next McCanns video, we'll continue watching this video. We're about a quarter of the way through. And what Kate's getting into here is full of lessons for me to teach. So we'll unpack that in the next video. All right, so let's look at some of the top comments from my last McCanns video, How to Solve a Cold Case, featuring profiling with Pat Brown. All right, top comment, which I pinned, is from David J. Karen. Hey, DD, the comment Pat mentioned in relation to you both as a formidable team was mine. I also left a detailed comment replying to thank Pat on her video you just reviewed. Check it out. I also comment similarly on your How to Spot a Cover-Up video. Thank you, David. Like I said in my last McCann video, the reason Pat Brown mentioned me on her channel and I was able to do a response video was because of David, right? A subscriber just like all of you who wanted to see a collaboration happen. I hinted at also being interested in collaborating with Pat, and David took the ball and ran with it. So if there's anyone else you'd like to see me collaborate with, like Sonia Polton or Peter Hyatt or Stephen Atwood, just comment on their videos. Let them know let them know that I'd be open to analyzing their stuff. Or like I did with Pat Brown, if they make a video talking about the case to me or to my subscribers, and I'll be sure to watch it and reply to it so that we can have a back and forth through the videos. Stephen Atwood has invited me to be a guest on his channel. However, I like to do video responses just so I have full control of the editing process, control of how how the video is presented, and control over the comments and any bots that might come to it. Since, as you might know, tracing the bots is something that is a niche interest of mine. All right, so thank you, David. And if you're watching the video right now and you'd like to see me collab with someone else, do drop a comment on their video, letting them know that if they make a video and they call me out, I'll be happy to make a video watching it, replying to it, reacting to it. And I think it's a cool way to collaborate. All right, the next upvoted video comment on my last McCanns video is from Liz. If she died in the apartment and they hid her body, it is absolutely heartbreaking that she never had a proper burial or resting place. For her parents to just hide her little body somewhere dark and alone to save their own skins is unforgivable. Justice for Maddie. So, like I said in my other video, I think that in many other videos now, I think that the McCanns justify, let's say they did, and I have to couch everything as an opinion just so I can defend myself if and when the McCanns come after me, so I can actually be on the offensive against them, right? I have to cover my tracks. So in my opinion, if the McCanns did kill Madeleine by over-sedation and then hid her body and then accepted money from people for a search that they knew would be fruitless, there are ways for people to justify that in their heads. So lots of times you'll see liars or criminals get indignant, even though they're guilty, right? They get indignant with their accusers. And the reason is because no one really sees themselves as a bad guy. They can justify just about anything. And in the McCanns case, one way they could justify it is to tell themselves, look, we didn't do anything bad. We gave her the same amount of sedatives we always give her. It hit her wrong this time. It was a freak accident. She's gone now. We can either tell the police, and potentially be hauled off to a Portuguese prison for negligence, and our twins would suffer. They would be taken away from us, put into foster care. We would lose our medical license, so we won't be able to support them, and their lives would be ruined too. So instead, what we can do is we'll hide it. We'll be as respectful as possible. Given the circumstances, we'll hide her. We'll come visit her every year. We'll come to this burial ground without revealing precisely where it is, but we'll come visit every year. So we'll do a pilgrimage to her. The twins will be able to stay with us. We won't lose our medical licenses, so we can support the twins, keep our family unit together, and any money we raise through our book about Madeleine, we will use for the benefit of the twins. It will raise awareness about missing children in general. So there's a silver lining, right? And I'm not saying I believe any of this. I'm saying this is how people can convince themselves that what they're doing is okay, right? It will raise awareness about missing children in general, and it will honor Madeleine's memory by keeping her story out there, telling her story, celebrating her. So I do think that desecrating a kid's body, being negligent, being fast and loose with medicines is terrible. It is a crime. But people can justify things. That's why when people say like, oh, this criminal didn't look guilty at all, right? Or the McCanns don't seem to be guilty, or they seem so cold. Lots of times people can justify just about anything in their heads to make it seem okay. And you have to be on the lookout for that. So when someone's lying to you, you have to be able to spot the lies they're telling you, as well as the self-delusion. Just because someone's getting indignant doesn't mean they're innocent. All right. Let's see. Next up, Kim Ko. Sonia Poulton is an amazing independent journalist. She won't drop the subject and is spot on with it. This is something that Pat Brown said in her video to me, where she welcomed me to the, I think she called it like the never-ending McCann case. If anyone can put an end to it, it's me. I'm just kidding. Maybe. I think there's one long shot, which I talked about in another video, where I could potentially help. But that's not the point of my channel. The point of my channel is to teach you how to spot liars. And the liars, the subjects we look at, whether they're lying or telling the truth, are just subjects for me to teach you how to spot lies, deception, manipulation. I don't necessarily have any skin in the game with any of these cases. So if a subject wants to make something personal with me, then I will go on the offensive. But in general, when I come to a case, I'm not necessarily trying to solve the case. I'm just trying to point out the deception, the manipulation, so you can spot it in your own life or in the press or in the government where it really impacts your own life. And I feel like the media is getting much better at brainwashing people, much better at deception. If you can't spot it, you are going to be in trouble. I also think that technology is improving to where it's a lot harder to trust your eyes anymore. With deep fakes, AR, VR, AI, trusting your eyes is no longer a given. However, you can still trust your ears. People will still talk the way they've evolved to speak for billions of years. And as long as you can hear what people are saying and the way they're saying it, you will be able to spot the truth. So regarding Sonia Poulton, that's awesome. I've heard lots about her. I don't know much about her myself. I knew about Pat, which is why I mentioned her. Sonia Poulton's in the UK, I know. She's a journalist. I think she's very outspoken on the McCanns topic. If you'd like to see, like I said earlier, a collaboration with me and her, do drop some comments on her videos, just letting her know I'd be interested. And if she makes a video addressed to me, I will be sure to react to it, because clearly everyone enjoyed the Pat Brown reaction video. That's one of the most popular videos in an already very popular series. Okay, next comment. This one's got a bunch of replies. All right, from Shelley Rosser. I was a nurse. I believe Maddie had an anaphylaxis shock reaction to the medication she was given. Probably occurred while she was on top of the couch and alone, falling and hurting herself, causing an open bleed. So causing like an open wound that was bleeding. Jerry probably found her and could do nothing about it. He would have needed the assistance of a hospital if he could do anything at all. It would not have taken long for the child to die. He didn't do this because of the circumstances they had put themselves into. They would have been charged and would lose their twins and life as they knew it. I don't think there's anything in the language that would contradict anything that Shelley said here. This is totally possible. Even from what I've seen, I believe that Jerry was there at the moment Madeleine died. I think that he's the one who actually came across the body just based on the way he talks about the last time he saw her and a few statements he made where he said, like, I thought how beautiful she was. And a few moments later, our lives were shattered, which to me indicates he might have been there when she was dying during those last few minutes. And when she finally died, or, you know, when the pulse finally stopped, that's when the world shattered. So whether, so I do think that this is a plausible theory. And the reason they would have not taken Madeleine to the hospital in that case would be because if they did, the hospital would discover probably adult grade sedatives in a toddler. And it might be because, right, they were giving her big doses that would have been a red flag at a hospital because she developed a tolerance to it because it was a routine thing that they administered to her at night. So this theory also works. I don't, as regarding the precise details of what happened, this is totally plausible. It doesn't go against anything in my own analysis. Let's see. All right, next comment. Paula Lias. I was shocked at the way Gonzalo Amaral was totally destroyed. I hope he has recovered somewhat at least because he lost absolutely everything, including his health. Yes, so Gonzalo is the detective who started off on the case, and Pat Brown mentioned him in her video, where the McCanns came after him personally for the book he wrote, and he actually had to go to court and fight and eventually won out and was able to publish his book about the case. Okay, here we go. Next comment. This one touches on what I was saying earlier as well. From Reg Barnard. Every description of Maddie by Jerry and Kate was that she was a loud, willful child. So if she was, oh, okay, well, he's taking a different direction, but he is commenting on how loud she was. There's lots of comments the parents make about how loud Madeleine was. And I think the reason they do this is because they might just be buffering against the possibility that the body is found. And so they can explain, yes, she was very loud. We actually had to sedate her to put her to bed so that the twins could sleep. Or it's just straight up leakage. They cannot help themselves but complain about how loud she was, even in media interviews about her. Either way, her being loud contributes to the theory that they sedated her. But Reg takes us in a different direction. So he says, so if she was abducted, it doesn't sound likely that she would go without screaming and waking the twins and alerting the old lady upstairs, particularly if she was being separated from her cuddle cat. And this is more evidence that she probably was sedated. So either way, even if you believe she was kidnapped, the fact that she didn't scream, the kidnapping thing already has so many problems with it that, in my opinion, it's 100% a hoax. In my opinion, the stranger kidnapping is a hoax. But even if you believed it, then yes, you do have to explain why she didn't wake up and start screaming, especially when even her parents talked about just how uniquely loud she was. Not even enough noise to wake up the twins. And then if you believe, okay, the kidnapper chloroformed her, the kidnapper took her and covered her mouth so she didn't scream. Well, no noise at all. Now you have to deal with the fact that the parents deny even sedating her that night. So, no, if you start going down the rabbit hole of the stranger kidnapping, more and more problems pop up the further you go. All right, let's see. Let me just scan quickly. All right, so here's another really good comment from Godless Pagan. I used to watch a lot of body language analysis, but found experts would have opposite interpretation of what expression is displayed, and their interpretations around that would be in conflict. I agree. I find the speech analysis consistent across experts and so much more insightful, not ambiguous at all, and appreciate so much the learning you provided for all of us here. Thank you, DD, for your help and skill sharing generosity. Thank you, Godless Pagan. This is a big problem I had, and I did a whole video about it in my Ramsey series yesterday, about body language. The fact that it is so subjective, it can be interpreted so many different ways because it's not precise at all, right? Words are precise. I have to go into my personal lexicon and pick out the word I want to use. Whereas if I'm blinking my eyes, the only thing you can interpret from that is maybe how rapidly I'm blinking them or how long I'm blinking them. But there's not much there. There's not much meat on the bone to analyze. So I do think that body language, the big pitfall of is that it's so subjective. It can show you a lot, right? Overt body language is very useful. I use my hands all the time to describe things. I use my face to describe things, to communicate. But regarding spotting deception, body language is not particularly useful. And a comment on my video about body language, the comment I pinned there was from a listener who actually pointed out that Ekman, the guy who came up with the whole science of reading faces, actually agrees with my opinion. I wasn't aware of that he said himself that body language and reading of faces is useful for communication or understanding if someone's disgusted or angry, but is not useful for detecting deception. Another just final note here about the behavior panel and other groups of experts who come together and do their analysis by committee. I think that's a big issue because when you're doing an analysis by committee, you don't really take on the full responsibility of being right. Because if you get something wrong, you can all share the blame together, and it's not as powerful, right? Your channel doesn't disappear overnight just because you got one thing wrong, because two of the guys might have gotten it right and two got it wrong, simply because you took alternating positions on a topic. So unless everyone on the behavior panel agrees at the end of the day, 100%, they're really not staking anything. Because, well, the two of them got it wrong, but we got it right, turns out. So keep watching the channel because we're right 50% of the time. And so you don't take full responsibility for what you say. You can share blame. You can hedge. And then there's just a bunch of cooks in the kitchen. So even when I look at your comments or look at the member section or look at your feedback or extra details you add, I always do it after I do my own analysis. And it's a big reason I work alone, because I need to stand behind every word I say. I don't want someone influencing my opinion before I've made the opinion myself. And I'm happy to update my opinions based on new facts. But when I form the opinion, I have to do it alone. That way, when I say it on camera, I stand behind it 100%, and I know I stand behind it 100%. And if I get it wrong, or I change my opinion, it's because I've updated an opinion I formed purely based on my own analysis, and now I'm learning some new information, right? Or something's been said that made me reconsider something I said earlier. So I don't think body language is particularly useful, and I really don't think analysis by committee is useful. At the end of the day, everything I say here, you still have to make the final determination yourself, what you believe, which is why I spend so long explaining the rules and explaining them, my thoughts behind them to you, so you can see how my mind is working as well. I don't want to just declare something and say, okay, that's the way it is. Because if I do that, you've learned nothing, and you don't really understand what my thinking was. And if I can't explain it well, that means I don't understand my thinking either. All right, so we've been going for a long one, but I think this is a good video. I think the next video we do on this, I can already tell, will be rich with lessons. And we'll start with Kate's scripted story about entering Madeleine, the bedroom, to discover that Madeleine is missing. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to participate fully in depth, consider becoming a member, or at the very least watching my McCanns playlist so you're up to speed by the time I release the next video. Until next time, stay true.